Welcome to Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I'm a board-certified music therapist, author, and expert on how to use music to relieve stress fast. This podcast is sponsored by McConnell Music Therapy Services, Inc., where they believe in the power of music to transform people and communities. Based in Northern California, their board-certified music therapists support people of all ages and abilities within hospitals, schools, corporations, and communities using music experience to connect, express, and de-stress. Visit them at mcconnellmts.com or their Facebook page, McConnell Music Therapy. This episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold is also sponsored by Dr. Nisi, trainer and certifier of master and executive coaches, because she believes every person, every relationship, every business, and your finances should be extraordinary. Find out more about Dr. Nisi Moore and the Life Coaching Institute at www.drnisi.com. That's DRNEECIE.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. It's so great to be with you. I'm so glad you're here. And I just got to start out with a big, giant, heartfelt thank you. Thank you to everybody who's left a review, especially Parenting Groove, who writes, I absolutely love what Tim has done with this topic. A great mix of guests, music, insights, and strategies from the ground level. Keep up the great work. You're helping millions. Gosh, Parenting Groove. I don't know what to say, but comments like this keep me coming back each week to share something that helps you. And I promise I will keep up the great work, thanks in part to your support. All right, in today's episode, we're going in the opposite direction of our last interview. If that interview was based in academia, this interview and the insights within come from the trenches, from the front lines, from the street, the front lines of addiction and recovery itself. My man, Jam Alker, is a phenomenal human being who got hooked on heroin, but clawed himself out of that hole with his guitar as his climbing axe. Pun intended. In this interview, we don't talk about eliminating or reducing the stress you're facing. We talk about how to transform the stress you're facing. So, sit back, learn, excuse the occasional colorful language, and I'll see you on the other side. Jam Alker is a musician, public speaker, and recovery activist. When he was in treatment for addiction, he rediscovered the power of music to heal and connect people, culminating in the release of his first solo album, Sophrosine. Since then, he's made it his mission to share the healing powers of music. As a public speaker, he shares his recovery perspective and his music to educate communities, students, recovery organizations, healthcare providers, and corporations about the stigma of addiction and the hope of recovery. In 2019, he was invited to speak at both Google's Palo Alto and Chicago headquarters. He performs with his band, The Jab, which I have seen, and continues to use music to reach others still struggling. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my friend Jam Alker. Jam, welcome to the summit.
What's happening? I am the least qualified person that I'm sure you have on this entire summit, regardless of how amazing that bio makes me sound. I don't know who wrote it. I do actually, and they did a really good job. That's wow. I'm impressive.
Yeah, man. We'll dispense all the imposter syndrome right out of the gate and just be like, "This is my friend Jam. He's number 16. We're just gonna."
Yeah. We needed another guy. I reached out. He said, "Fine, I got time." Yeah. Cool.
I said, I need some tattoos on this because I've got too many people with letters after their name. Let's bring it down and keep it real. And ladies,
I got three letters after my name. It's WTF is actually the 3 letters after my name.
Well, dude, all that means is you don't have a student loan, unlike all the rest of us nerds. That's all our left. because
Pretty much.
nobody knows or cares what anybody else's letters but their own mean anyway. So
Yeah.
screw them. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the next 30 minutes, I want you to understand something about me and Jam. So I'm going to say a quick disclaimer, because I swear like a sailor, and so does Jam. So we are going to have a heart-to-heart conversation in our own language, and it's probably going to take a little bit different tone than the language that maybe Jody and I just used, which was very clinical and very, it was just different. And Tommy's, which was a little more, transformational. So just beware and understand it's where we both come from, and this is our mutual language we speak together as musicians. So if you hear a few colorful contributions from either of us, I ask for your grace in advance. Thank you. With that being said.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So before we get started, as a musician, when I asked you the question, what was your favorite concert? I'm really more curious, like, what was your favorite concert that you gave? What was your favorite gig?
For sure. I would have to say that the highlight thus far was last year in May. I opened for the band Garbage at the Riviera Theater here in Chicago in front of a couple of thousand people for a benefit concert that I sort of facilitated putting together in order to raise money to help people get into music-based treatment who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford to get that kind of treatment. So I reached out to Garbage, asked them if they would be a part of it. We negotiated a price, got them out here. We got the Riviera. We've got about 2,000 people together in a room and made some noise. So that was probably my favorite show that I've done so far.
That's a beautiful story. What an awesome gig. Now I do have to ask, because we were fans, along the way also. So hook me up. What is a concert of someone else's that you did go to that was mind-blowing?
Of course. So I was lucky enough to be friends with Eddie Vedder before they really blew up. And so I spent a little bit of time out on tour with them just before, when I was super, super young, right before their first single, Jeremy, really blew up and took them to the stratosphere. And so I spent a few days on the road with them, and those early concerts of theirs, the energy, I've never seen anything like it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's cool.
Very cool. Thank you for that. I appreciate hearing those stories. We, all of us have our different musical journeys, and Ange and I don't know if you were there. I think it was me and my friend Jimmy. We just ended up at a club one night to see a different band, and this opening band, they were like, "Hi, our record's coming out later this year. Our name is Maroon 5. Hope you enjoy the set." And we just saw them in a bar, and it was long before they became pop, when they were still soul, neo soul. And it was just like, what, and like you said, the energy early on, like, right. So love those moments when you just happen to catch the wave early in a brilliant band's career, and you were there.
For sure.
So, your story is amazing, a story of transformation, and kind of a predictable storyline. Could have been an obituary. Yep. And it's not. Instead, you have this impressive, intro that I got to read today. Tell me a little bit about where you were, what happened, how'd you get where you are, and why are you, like a lot of us in recovery, turn around to reach back and help another person suffering. And then there's a lot of people who get sober who don't feel the need to do that, and that's cool. But what draws you to turn around, reach your hand out to help others?
Well, sure. So I spent over a decade in a deep hole of heroin addiction. Couldn't keep the needle out of my arm. During that time, I had given up music. My earlier days, in my 20s, I had done some touring, made some records, had a little bit of success, nothing huge. Then found heroin, gave up everything for about 10 years. And then almost 6 years ago, I went to treatment. Brought my guitar with me, the one thing I hadn't pawned, the only thing I had left with me, brought that with me. And rather than it just helping me pass the time, I used it as a way to heal, as a form of therapy. I started writing again, and it completely changed my life. And I shared some of the stuff that I was writing with the folks in my unit. And I saw that I was finding words to express some of the things that they hadn't been able to express yet. And so I saw it as my path. I realized that this was something that I could do using the talents that I had as a way to help others. And so why do I do that? Why did I do that? Why is service at the core of my recovery? Initially, I did it because they told me that that's what I should do. All the people who had what I want, that's what they said I should do. And as I did it, I realized that that was the thing that kept the needle out of my arm, being of service to others. There's nothing in the world that provides me the same high as being able to help someone who has no way of being able to repay me. There's nothing like it. Nothing compares to it. And it is the thing that keeps me strong in my recovery, bottom line.
That's brilliant. I love that you were willing to take the advice of someone else who had what you had or what you wanted in recovery. Like you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Yep. There's a map for how to get out of this. So if you're willing to humble yourself to someone else's advice, which is hard, a lot of adults have a hard time being willing to learn again. We have very little failure tolerance. We don't want to start over at anything. We got really good at our coping skills, so we thought. And in other areas of life, we may be doing great. So screw it. Like, I'll just, struggle in this one area and endure. And, but you were willing to that act of humility of listening to someone else and doing what they said. And then you had the experience yourself, like, oh, they're not messing around. It's
interesting. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I feel like I need to hear based off of what you said. Because when I go and speak in treatment centers, I talk about my gratitude for having a heroin addiction, and people look at me like, are you crazy? And I say, I'm truly grateful for it because of what you just said. Most people are stuck in a situation where their life is decent, but there's still a ton of discomfort, and they have unhealthy coping skills, how to deal with it, whether it's, Facebook, whether it's porn, it's gambling, it's what's in the pantry, it could be many, many things, all addictions and distractions, but none that have the same consequences as being a junkie, as being a heroin addict. And that's why I say that I'm grateful for that, because without that, my life was not great. Like, say some of these other folks, it's not great, but it's not quite bad enough to actually truly make the changes that I needed to make. So I'm grateful. Like, I didn't have a choice. I knew the next step for me was death. I was going to die. And that was a hell of a motivator for me to do the work. But it's tough, man. Like you said, people who don't have such great consequences, some consequences, but not such dire consequences that they truly have to change their lives. It is not easy as an adult.
Yeah. Really well said. So being able to try something different, like right? Like, just number one, just try something different. Just take someone else's word. Then have your own experience of what it's like, so that you're like, oh, now I can internalize this for myself. I can own this experience. I can own this high. And I think it's really important, like what you're saying, because people are getting high as a solution to a problem. They're not getting high as a problem. They already have a problem. That's why you reach for whatever you reach for. And I love how you listed all the different things that people reach for, because it's not just simply substance abuse. And it's just whatever works. And, when you can learn that there are other things you can reach for that actually produce an equivalent or better reaction in you, and then you have that experience, no one can take it from you after that.
Dude, it's drugs. They just don't work. Like, why did I stop doing it? It's because it literally doesn't work. But yes, there are other things that, you do a couple experiments. Let's see what the results, what is the evidence after doing this experience? After a decade of doing heroin, the evidence shows me that it does not fix shit. Oh, over here, okay, I'm going to start a meditation practice. I'm going to start working out. I'm going to have a spiritual experience. I'm going to be of service to others. Whoa, this shit's actually working. It's really that simple, right? That doesn't work. This does.
Yeah, man, that's it. It's like, I think some people, when they, people learn different ways, right? And some people have to burn their hand on the stove to find out it's hot. Some people are willing to trust that the stove is hot. And then, and that can be dynamic even. Like, I've heard the stove is hot, but how hot is it? I mean, did they use their left hand? I mean, did they touch the back of the stove? Maybe if I just touch the back of the stove, I'll be fine, right? And I burned my hand on the stove last time, but I was using my right hand. So this time I'm going to use my left hand, and I bet you things will be different. And then eventually you realize this is the insanity, and we do it at different levels, right? And so I think heroin, and I know Russell Brand tells a similar story about being grateful because the consequences are so quick with heroin that
Yes.
you need to change or die fast. And for a lot of us, we are suffering through milder addictions, including what Tommy said, which is addiction to stress itself. And there's just not that motivation. And so that's really, like, my heart goes out to those of us who, like, when I was a kid, we called them functional alcoholics or functional addicts. That was the phrase in
Yep.
my family, where they definitely had a problem, but they still could hold down a job.
Yep.
But their family like grew up abused or neglected, but because they held down a job,
Right.
and they weren't divorced,
Yep.
everything was functional. And yet the quality of the experience inside the family unit was miserable. And
I would say that for a large part of my addiction, I was a functional addict, which is bullshit. All it meant is that I knew how to make money while the rest of my life was just falling to complete shit. That's all that means. You still know how to make money.
yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Good for
Right.
you. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
you did it.
functional.
But that's what's so funny about our culture, right? Is that, and then we put that functional side online and we just tell ourselves the lie that this is what my whole life looks like. And then everybody else believes it.
Now we celebrate it. We celebrate how many movies of the hardworking, gruff detective who has to go to the bar at the end of the day to just wipe away his sorrows with a million shots of whiskey. He is a badass.
Yeah.
It's dumb. We
Absolutely.
celebrate.
I feel like I had a conversation with somebody the other day who was saying that she is trying to create wellness in healthcare settings about not drinking after work for nurses, because the nurses all go to happy hour together. And she's like, you don't understand. If you don't go, the culture is set up that it's almost like points taken away from you in the professional climate.
Yeah.
For not drinking after work with the rest of the people. And you're like brokenhearted because you're like, I'm just trying to be healthy. Why do I have to A, defend being healthy, and B, get penalized for it? And that's where everybody goes. So let's think about this thing that drives us to drink or drives us to drug, which is this topic we're talking about, which is stress. So for you, like, what is stress?
So here's the thing. Stress does not exist. It is not a thing. It's not real. I just won the Stress Elimination Summit. Thank you. Good night. Right? That's what we're trying to do. Eliminate stress. I just eliminated it by saying it doesn't exist.
Sorry, everybody. It's not really a 4-day event. It was just till 11:30 Pacific, and then we're out of here. So
you're welcome.
You're welcome.
No, but I thought that would be a funny little way to start, of course, but it's true. It's a concept. It's not a real thing. So when we kind of take away that power from it, from my perspective, I think that it's helpful. Now, that's not to say that there aren't like stressors, right? And a stress response. And stressors are a very real thing. What we're going through now, COVID, people losing their jobs as a result of that, political, social unrest, all of these different things are real stressors. But our stress reaction is completely 100% based off of our imagination. It is. So that's not to say that, some stress or stressors and stress response aren't important. Like at the base, right? We know it's either sort of a fear or an anger response, right? Fight or flight sort of response, which are necessary for evolution. We're necessary for survival. I recently was watching a documentary about this issue, and what they talked about is it's stress is necessary for survival, but it's not necessary beyond survival. It actually can hinder your ability to perform beyond survival. So the stress response is great there, but outside of that, it's pretty damn useless. Nuance to that statement, but beyond the survival imperative. So I think when I look at it,
go ahead.
I think when I look at it that way, it really changes my relationship to the idea of what it is and how I can then, it gives me the ability to respond to it. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about my spiritual practice and meditation being a big part of that, which I know your speaker right before me was also talking about, and probably half the other speakers will, but, maybe talk a little bit about how that works for me within my spiritual experience.
I think that's really important because in my own journey, I grew up religious. And so prayer was like this thing that I thought I knew about, you know, and I thought it was, I say these words, almost like they're like a deposit into an account.
Yeah.
That's what I have to put it. I mean, I have to make a deposit of words to a thing in this account at a certain frequency, and I have to do a certain amount of them. It was very transactional. It wasn't there wasn't any connection. There wasn't any intimacy, communion.
Right.
Right. And then I'm in 12 step and it says sought through prayer and meditation. And I'm like, wait, what? What was that second part? You know, like, what does that mean? And then it was like, well, that's when you sit down in silence and you stop thinking. And I'm like, good luck with that.
Yep.
Because this thing doesn't stop thinking, or what are you, crazy? You know?
Right.
And then I was like, oh, maybe I'm crazy because I can't do it. And I've learned along the way that meditation is a very subjective, broad term, and it's a very personal experience, and lots of people have different practices, and it's not one size fits all, and it can be used for different things. And I think the more people who talk about their journey into it, what they do, what they get out of it, you start to hear like a three-dimensional color picture of meditation rather than a two-dimensional black and white. So that's why I was like, that's why you and me, I have like this hybrid, like nerd side, clinical side. And then I used to pour liquid latex over my body and play heavy metal on stage. So I have like these two different sides, and some people, some people,
I love that about you.
Some people, like, I can understand they're not going to relate to the academic side. They need to hear it, the real world side. And that's why I thought our conversation would be so refreshing, because it would be 180 degrees differently from what I just said. Exactly. So having said that, tell me about your journey into meditation, but particularly how you look at, like, why have a spiritual practice for you? What is that providing you? And then moving in from there.
Oh man, it's all so connected. I love this quote, you know, that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And that just really says it all to me when I'm able to stay in that place of remembering that. I don't have to look at these, stressors as things that are out to get me. I can look at every single one of them as an opportunity to learn, and as an opportunity to grow as that spiritual being that I am having this human experience. And that, so that's spirituality to me. And spirit to me is just that thing inside, man. When you do something, you get those goosebumps and that thing deep down inside of you that you can't put into words. That's that thing that keeps the needle out of my arm. That's a spiritual experience, like that core thing that there aren't any words. And that's what religion does, fuck things up, try to put words onto a thing that there are no words for. We're so damn egotistical. Anyway, that thing, right? When you resonate with that, you just know, and that's spirituality to me. So when I first came out of treatment, I went to a club here in Chicago, where they were doing 12-step meetings. One of the nights there was a meditation meeting in the room next door. Wanted to check it out. Was really trying to pull in everything I could for this vital spiritual experience that I was in the process of having. And the facilitator would show videos of a Tibetan Buddhist monk named Yongey Mingyur Rinpoche, who was just a meditation master, but also had done a lot of studying in neuroscience. And he has an organization called Cheragar Meditation Community that I ended up joining. And it's sort of, removed the Buddhist trappings from to make it something more palatable for the West, we'll say, at least the introduction, and really all you need in the meditation practice. And it's basically what it comes to is that inside of you, your spirit, your soul, that thing, self-awareness, that thing is who you are. And when you're able to sit in that seat of awareness and watch your thoughts and feelings come and go and not attach to them, you really are able to experience the actual, satisfaction, peace, serenity that we're all so desperately searching for constantly. And one of the metaphors that's used is that, like you said, you can't stop thinking. You cannot stop thinking. But if you were watching your thoughts, you're allowing them to happen. Within a millisecond, you're usually right back in. And we use the metaphor of the river. You want to sit on the riverbank and watch your thoughts go flying by, stream by, right? Before you realize it, you're in the river flailing. I realized it. I come back out. That was a moment of awareness. Sit on the beach, watch it go by. I'm right back in it, right? That can happen thousands of times in a 10-minute session, right? But the key to it all is starting to learn that you are not your thoughts and your emotions. You are the watcher, you're the seer of those things, right? So one of the things that is said in my practice is, may you be happy and free from suffering. And I thought about that early in my recovery. I didn't know what happiness was, but freedom from suffering I could get down with, right? And so it doesn't mean the suffering doesn't exist. It means we are free of it, right? Slavery exists, but you are looking towards having freedom from the bondage of slavery, right? So it's you do not want to try to stop the stresses from happening. You're trying to become free from the responses of the stresses. And when you're able to practice enough, watching your thoughts and feelings come and go as the temporary phenomenon they are, you can look at the stressors in the same way. Am I perfect at it? Absolutely not. Do I get it right 99% of the time? Absolutely not. But enough that it works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. There's a great quote, and I think I just saw it in the chat. Joe, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but if it's Bailey, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And I thought that's like, oh yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense to me. You know, that would be insanity is I'm going to stop these waves.
Complete insanity. And we
You
do
know
it
what I mean?
constantly.
We do it constantly. It's like, I'm going to make everything like a lake or a pond. There will be no waves anywhere. Good luck.
I can't stop the flow of the river. I can't stop the flow of the river. Therefore, I can't stop. I can't meditate. Well, yeah, nobody can. That's exactly right. You get on a board, you flow with it. And as you flow with it, you get better. You get up on the board, all of a sudden you're able to start carving waves.
Yeah, that's it.
For about a millisecond, then you fall off and you do it again and again and again. But that's the practice, right? Those are the mental reps that we were talking about.
That's exactly it.
You do over and over and over again. That's the practice, the way that I was taught.
Yeah, really good. So, you know, mentioning meditation as a practice, I also want to talk a little bit about service, because I know for you, I want to swing back to it really quickly.
Yes.
Because we live in a self-obsessed culture and the me culture. And for me, addiction is very much a me phenomenon. It's about me. And, you know, the 12 steps are written in the first person plural for a reason. We. And I remember like the opportunity to serve, like service was never created as an opportunity for me until like being in the 12 steps. And I think that's something that, you know, not everybody wants to find themselves in a 12-step meeting because they're not ready, but the opportunity to serve another human being, what's possible, what's available for you from serving others. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I wrote it down exactly what you said. Like, we have such an inflated importance of self, and a lot of stress comes from that. Me. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to me? Service takes you outside of yourself. You are with others. You are in the moment. You are empathizing with them. You are creating community and compassion with them. You cultivate gratitude for your own experience and the good things in your life. It's medicine. It's one of those things, again, where I can sit here and try to talk about it, but you've got to do it to see how it changes everything inside of you.
Do it.
It stops being about self and about helping others. But you're right. You know, outside of the 12-step program, what are the opportunities? But, you know, granted, there's some issues with COVID right now, but there are opportunities to volunteer at hospitals, at, you know, treatment centers, at the VA. If you want to instead work with animals, you know, there are so many different volunteer opportunities out there for people. If you're stressed out and you want to try out some new ways to maybe cope with that thing that doesn't actually exist, but we allow to control us, this is an option of a way to do it.
Yeah, I think the challenge that in our culture is we have this martyrdom syndrome where everybody's like, it's like this other thing needs more help than you. So you need to go help them and basically forget about you. And it's like the context of that inside of a self-obsessed culture, it's like, I don't want to do that. But if someone said to me, if you go help these people, you'll feel better.
Yep.
It's like a win-win, right? And to be honest about it. Like, I know I'm going to help them for me.
Sure.
They benefit. So I could be home trying to obsess over me and no one else gets any benefit. Or I could go out and actually work with others for the benefit of me and other people benefit.
Yep.
And if someone had just been frank with me about that early on,
Right.
I would have been like, oh, that's rad. That's a total win-win. I'm down. Let's go. Well, where do you need help? Because I want to help me. And if someone else can win along the way. And then what happens, of course, you forget about you. Right. But it's not like you must subject, it's automatic. You just instantly forget about you. And it's so refreshing.
That's God, man. That's God right there. That's a spiritual experience right there. Both Jesus and Buddha use metaphors because trying to say the actual thing was kind of useless. So I don't know if we can consider that a metaphor, but that is a perfect example of what God and spiritual experience is right there.
That's it.
Win-win, baby.
That's a win-win. That's exactly it. Where do people find out more about you online?
So my name is Jam Alker, Jamalker. You put www in front of it and a .com at the end of it. You will find everything at www.jamalker.com. My name, Jamalker. There's a million different places where you can hear my music or hear me talk or follow some of my inspirational memes and things like that. Get it all at jamalker.com.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. If any of our VIPs have any questions for Jam, now would be the time. I don't see any in our chat right now, but do you have any questions for him besides what the tattoo on his right forearm means? So what is that? Oh, it's the cover of your album. That's what that is. Is it a dragonfly? Is that technically the right term?
It's a dragonfly. Yeah, it's the cover of my first album.
Yes, it is. It's very good. And ladies and gentlemen, as a music therapist who is also a songwriter and a musician, I highly recommend Jam's music, and I highly recommend both his first and second records. Jam Alker is the artist of the first record. The Jab technically is the artist. Is that right? If
the band,
searching,
yeah,
the band,
yeah.
And it's his band. So go look both records up and listen to the lyrics, and the stories that are told in the lyrics are brilliant. They're brilliant, dude. Yeah, thanks. So good. So thank you for joining me today, my buddy. This was just glad we got to do this together.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I will see you online, and I look forward to us being able to see each other in person someday again.
That would be wonderful. All right, brother. Take care.
All right, brother. Peace.
All right.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I've got a couple of resources for you, which you can find in the show notes or you can listen to right here. So check it out. If you enjoy the sound of my voice and you enjoy the sound of my guitar, imagine them put together. Go to sonicrecovery.com and take your very own relaxation vacation, where I take you out of the stress of the present moment and back in time to a time when you felt happy, healthy, safe, and sober, and then walk you through that memory so you can bring back those feelings into the challenges you're facing today. So go check that out. It's at sonicrecovery.com. If you're a healthcare worker in recovery, check out the Music in Recovery Self-Care Guide for healthcare professionals that I created just for you. That's at hcp.sonicrecovery.com. And if you're a healthcare worker and you'd like more information about how to help your patients use music, you can check out the Music Medicine Guide that I created just for you at musicmedicineguide.com. Lastly, if you enjoyed the pod and you haven't done it yet, would you just take a minute to rate and review it? It really only takes about 60 seconds, believe it or not, and it would go a long way to help us make more people know just how good this pod is, particularly for healthcare workers and their stress. Thanks again. See you next time.